What the Constitution Means to Me is written by Heidi Schrek, who grew up in Wenatchee, Washington, a small town in central Washington state, where my family and I moved just a couple years ago. The play was nominated for 2 Tony Awards and was a Pulitzer Prize finalist. Heidi starts the play by telling the audience, as a 15-year-old girl, she traveled around the country debating the U.S. Constitution, and this is how she earned money to go attend college. She debated the Constitution in front of a room full of white men. In the setting in the play, it's the American Legion Hall in Wenatchee, Washington, and it's moderated by one of the Legionnaires. Once I sit down, I will become that Legionnaire, so imagine I'm a white male, and it's a Legionnaire. In the excerpt, and remember, this is a play, so if there's any appropriate responses that come with a play, please make them. Please feel free to laugh, cheer, whatever you feel called to do. In the excerpt that you're about to hear, Heidi is addressing the Amendment 14, Clause 4, which states, "Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law." Your time begins now.
Clause 4 is one of the most miraculous in our entire Constitution. We stole it from the Magna Carta. It ensures that the government cannot lock you up, take your stuff, or kill you without a good reason. It is also the heart of the 1973 Supreme Court decision Roe v. Wade, a case that is all about penumbras. With the help of Justice William O. Douglas's beautiful penumbra metaphor, Justice Harry Blackmun used the 9th Amendment to shine a light into the other amendments, and he found there, in the shadows of the Constitution, the right to privacy. And he argued that this gave a woman the right to decide what to do with her own body. Technically, thank you. Technically, he argued that a doctor and his patient have a right to privacy so that he can decide what to do with her body. This was a very special moment for the 9th and 14th Amendments. They kind of came together in a Wonder Twins powers activate kind of way to protect a woman's right to choose. Of course, depending on your view, gentlemen, you may consider this an unholy alliance. My view, which I do feel obligated to share, even if it endangers my scholarship money, is I support a woman's right to choose. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. I would also like to say it is a choice I would never make personally. I said that. No, I really said that in the contest. And then 6 years later, I got pregnant. So that was confusing. I didn't know what to do. I was 21. I just graduated college. And I was back in Wenatchee living in my parents' basement. I was helping my dad paint houses for the summer because I was saving up money to move to Siberia to teach English for 1 million rubles a month. I decided to take a pregnancy test. I was just a couple days late on my period, and I was praying it was one of those hysterical pregnancies like ladies in the soap operas get. But I could not go to Planned Parenthood because my mom's best friend worked there, and I couldn't go to a drugstore because someone might see me and tell my parents. So I looked in the phone book. I found this listing. It said, "Free pregnancy testing, quick, confidential." I'm gonna keep going. I went downtown. I found this unmarked building, and I snuck in the back door. And the first thing I saw when I walked inside is that the walls were covered with pictures of fetuses. And there was this huge poster that said, "Adoption is a beautiful choice," and then the sign that said, "Birthright." I panicked. I wanted to run out the back door, but in case you can't tell by this point in the show, I was raised to be just psychotically polite. So when Marcy, the receptionist, said, "We're so glad you're here," I just smiled and said, "Me too." And then she and I proceeded to have like a nice off. She took my hand. She said, "Heidi, if you are pregnant, will this be good news or bad news?" And I started to cry loudly, but because I didn't want to let Marcy down, I said, "Good, really good news." And she said, "Yay!" And even though she must have known I was lying, and then she hugged me. She hugged me, and I sobbed into her shoulder. And she smelled so good. She smelled just like my Grandma Betty, like White Shoulders perfume that has been left out in the sun way too long. You might remember my town. It's a conservative. It was an abortion-free zone. You had to drive 3 hours west to Seattle or 5 hours east to Spokane to get an abortion. I decided I wanted to go 8 hours south to Eugene, Oregon, because there is a clinic there called the Feminist Women's Health Collective, run by lesbians, which is clearly the safest place to get an abortion. And that is what I wanted. I wanted an abortion. I knew it was my right, I knew it was legal, and I knew it had been legal for most of the history of this country. Actually, because I'd been able to go to college, I knew abortion had only become a crime in the late 19th century, right before the government started forcibly sterilizing women of color and indigenous women. And I knew that when abortion became illegal, it didn't become rare, it only became deadly. I knew that Gloria Steinem had had an abortion, and Billie Jean King, and Susan Sontag. I knew that Penny from Dirty Dancing had had an abortion. And I knew that when Jennifer Grey asked her dad, Jerry Orbach, to save Penny's life after her back alley abortion almost killed her, I knew she was asking a lot of her father. Because this was the 1960s, and Jerry Orbach could have been arrested for getting anywhere near an abortion. And I knew that this is how we were supposed to understand that Jerry Orbach was a good man. And also how we knew that Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze's love was real. That is everything that was going through my head while Marcy and I were hugging. I didn't say any of that to her, though. I didn't say anything. She gave me my positive pregnancy test. I said, "Thank you," and then I headed for the door. She followed me. She gave me this pamphlet that explained if I had an abortion, I would probably become suicidal and barren and maybe go to hell. And then she tucked in the tag at the back of my dress, and she said, "I can't help myself, always a mother." I also didn't tell my mother what I was really doing. I have no idea why I didn't tell her I was pregnant, which is weird because my mom's a feminist. She's pro-choice. She marched for the Equal Rights Amendment and cried when it didn't pass. She even had one of those white lady feminist theater troupes that does, I don't know, puppet shows of the yellow wallpaper. But for some reason, I couldn't tell her. In fact, I didn't tell anyone for 25 years until I started performing this show. And then all my friends came to the show and told me about their abortions, and their mothers came to the show and told me about their abortions, which were so much more harrowing. Actually, I told one other person. I told the guy. I told Gene. And Gene, he was so chivalrous, he offered to pay for half of it. And he even suggested that we drive down Highway 101 and camp on the beaches and make some kind of vacation out of it. Ew, right? Thank you. That is how I felt. Look, I just want to say this. I don't have to say this, but I was on birth control when I got pregnant. I had been on the pill since I was 15 years old. My friend Renee and I snuck in the back door of Planned Parenthood before my mom's friend worked there. Neither of us were having sex yet, but we wanted to be on birth control just in case we were in a hot tub and then the sperm swam up and attacked us. Or, in case of a real attack. I remember it was such a nice day. We went to McDonald's and we took our first pills with chocolate shakes, and I could kind of feel it working right away, like I felt very womanly. Something came alive inside of me. What I didn't know at the time is that birth control had only been legal for all women in this country for 15 years. I mean, I was 15, so I thought it had been legal since like the dawn of time. But no. In 1965, this incredible woman, Estelle Griswold, got herself arrested for giving out birth control to poor women at her Connecticut Planned Parenthood. She faced a year in prison, took her case all the way to the Supreme Court, and this is when William O. Douglas brought out his beautiful penumbra metaphor. This is when he said, "One thing our Constitution surely guarantees is the right to privacy, and that this allows a woman to put in an IUD as long as she is married and as long as her husband says that it is okay." This was such a scary moment for William O. Douglas. He really put himself on the line for us. Because the truth is, nobody understands the Ninth Amendment. Nobody except me at 15. Justice Scalia said he didn't even remember studying it in law school. Scalia said he couldn't tell you what the Ninth Amendment meant if his life depended on it, which I guess his didn't. So they had to dig up this amendment nobody uses, nobody understands, because there was just no other way to deal with a female body. Because our bodies had just been left out of this document from the beginning. They were just like, we don't know what to do with this body. That is my founder's impression. Thank you. So they dug up this amendment nobody uses because they wanted to make birth control legal. They wanted to because I found out that William O. Douglas, who was my hero when I was 15 years old, Justice William O. Douglas was 67, and he was having an affair with a 22-year-old college student. And it turns out that 3 other justices may have been having sex with young women as well. So I'm thinking, right, they need to find a way to get the birth control flowing. I would love to play a snippet of the actual Supreme Court argument because it is trenchant. It is fascinating. It's 1965. There will not be a woman on this court until Sandra Day O'Connor arrives in 1981. Here are 9 men deciding the fate of birth control, 4 of whom may have been cheating on their wives.
Now that I've interrupted you, you've told us that in Connecticut, the sale of these devices is not molested because they're sold for the prevention of disease. Is this true about all of these devices that are covered, that each of them has the potential dual function of acting in a contraceptive capacity and as a prevention of disease, or only with respect to some of them?
It's probably only true with respect to some, but some get by under the term feminine hygiene. And others, I just don't know about. But they are all sold in the Connecticut drugstores on one theory or another.
Is there anything in the record to indicate the extent of the birth rate in Connecticut vis-a-vis the states that don't have such laws?
It's like 4 hours of that. birth control became legal for single women in this country in 1972, which is the year after my mom got pregnant with me. This is what I was thinking about when my mom drove me to Seattle to meet Jean to go down for an abortion. I was thinking about the fact that she was my age when she had me, that she wanted to become an actor and a writer and move to New York City, which is of course what I'm gonna do, but I don't know that yet. And as soon as I have that thought, I'm overcome by this horrible wave of nausea. I ask her to pull the car over, and I open the door and I puke on the side of the road. And when I sit back up, I can tell that she knows. And I'm waiting for her to tell me that it's okay, that it's my body, and like she taught me, this is my decision. But when I look at my mom, she's got this wild look in her eyes, and then she starts hyperventilating, and she's basically having some kind of panic attack, and all of a sudden she shouts, "You better not be pregnant!" And I shout, "I'm not pregnant!"